I own a sweater that should not exist. Sorry, Grandma, but it's a FreeCell board. There's sequins, there's colors. I put it on and I looked in the mirror, and some quiet, reliable part of my brain said, absolutely not. Plus, it was itchy. Then three people told me that it looked great. So I ended up wearing it, fully committed. Now you're on a psychology channel, so you already know the study I'm about to bring up. Lines on a card, room full of actors, one very confused real person. I'm not going to walk you through the setup like you just wandered in here from a cat video. It's Solomon Ash. Welcome to FreeCell Lab. Today, I'm playing game 34 while we ask how many people would it take sitting across from you confidently wrong before you start doubting what your own eyes just told you? Open your own board and play along. See if you can beat my score. It's on, Grandma. Stick around. By the end, we'll have something most people don't: the ability to process before you react. Now, quick fun fact before we get into it: Solomon Ash and Stanley Milgram Solomon Ash and Stanley Milgram, they were actually buddies at Harvard. If you know, you know. Solomon, by the way, that's what we're calling him. Maybe Saul, maybe Solly. We're on a first name basis, him and me. I think he'd want it that way. Here's the thing that people forget about this study. Most of the room, most of the time, gave the wrong answer. The obviously wrong answer. And almost everyone caved at least once. Only a small handful never did, not once. But here's the part that never makes it into the textbook summary. Solomon asked people afterwards why they did it. And the answers split into three genuinely different type of categories. The first group, or the first type of answer people gave, was the line started looking a little bit differently. As everyone gave their answers, by the end, I just wasn't sure what I was looking at. The second general answers people gave was they knew their eyes were right, but they figured maybe the room knew something they didn't. Must be me. The third reasoning: never doubt their eyes for a second. They just doubt whether disagreeing was worth it. Although I'm sure you guys would have just been like, no, that's wrong. But I don't want to say what I would have done. Now here's the twist that makes this worth more than just a party trick. And Saul really earned his lunch money on this one. He changed the variable. He tested what happens if just one other person in the room disagrees with the group. Doesn't have to agree with the real subject. Doesn't even have to be right. Just has to say something other than the unanimous wrong answer. What happened? The conformity collapsed. It collapsed faster than a lawn chair on July 4th. Not dipped, collapsed. It took one dissenting voice, and the odds of caving to the wrong opinion disappeared. It disappeared faster than hot dogs on July 4th barbecue. It was never about being validated. It was about not being alone. Lonelier than... Okay, I'll stop. Okay, after this one. Lonelier than my grandma on July 4th. Maybe I should have stopped before. Okay, back to Saul and the lines. You don't need someone to agree with you to feel like you can speak up. You just need to not be the only one talking. So where does this actually show up? Because life is not lines on a card. In the meeting, where everyone's nodding at a plan, you see the hole in. In the group chat where a decision gets made in 6 messages, and it's a bad decision. In a friend group that's decided how they feel about someone, it's a family that's decided what the coping mechanisms are. Maybe it's a whole industry agreeing on a way of doing something that stopped making sense decades ago. Education system for 600, Alex? R.I.P. None of those rooms have a man in a coat. Nobody's ordering anybody around. It's not Stanley Milgram here. It's just a bunch of people. Now here's a fair question. Why would evolution build a brain that overrides your own working eyes just to match a room or cave? Because for most of human history, we lived in a small group and we hunted together. Well, not me, I was more gathering. A tribe that moved as one, even in the wrong direction, sometimes survived more than a tribe of people wandering off on their own. Agreement kept you alive. Correctness was, frankly, a secondary concern. That made sense. But the world we're living in isn't that world anymore. A wrong line, a bad decision in a meeting, a group text everyone's agreeing with, none of that is life or death now. The wiring never got that memo. So the real question is this actually useful here in my actual life? And I think it's time for a brain reboot. If Malcolm in the Middle can have a reboot, so can our brains. Teaching that old useful survival brain that agreement isn't the only way to survive the winter. So how do we actually do it? Practically, in a real room. Okay, you gather the old cast for Malcolm. Okay, no, that's not the reboot we're actually focusing on. Okay, 3 things to reboot our brain. None of them require to become a different person. First, by yourself, the pause. You thought I was selling a coaching session. The pause. It's by the pause. The pause, stop, time out. And there's a difference because it's really enormous if something happens and instead of reacting right away, you say, let me sit with that for a second. It costs you nothing socially and buys you 30 seconds. Your brain needs to check whether you're actually agree or you're just matching the room. Most conformity happens in the 2 seconds where saying nothing feels the same as saying yes. Second, say the smallest true thing. You don't have to blow up the meeting. You don't need a speech. We the people. You need one sentence that's honest. I think I'm seeing this differently. That's it. That's the whole intervention. And remember what Saul found? You don't need to be right to break the spell. You just need that one voice that isn't unanimous, which means the bar is not have a fully formed bazinga at the ready. The bar is say the small true thing out loud. Third, be someone's ally. This is the one nobody does, and it's probably the most powerful thing in the entire study. When somebody else in the room says the small true thing, maybe first, back them up immediately, out loud, even if you're not sure yet, because that will stop everyone else from conformity. So it's 3 things. Pause, just say something, and be an ally. And the internal version, the one that you run silently, is 1 sentence. Before you nod along with the room, ask yourself in the half second before you speak, am I agreeing because I see it or because everyone else does? And that's the whole gap between the trigger and the response. It's not a speech. It's not a stand. It's just one honest sentence to yourself in the pause before your mouth catches up with the room. Because here's the thing about the study everyone quotes. We remember it as a story about how people conform. But there was a quarter of the room that never did, not once. And they weren't heroes. They weren't louder than anyone else, or they didn't have greater grandmas. They just kept trusting their own eyes. And if you're here in this channel, I know you want to be that one. Not to prove anything, just so that when you know it's your turn, you can say and do the right thing internally. Free your cell. If you want to keep running experiments with me, subscribe. The lab is always open, and drop a comment below. What's the ugliest thing you've ever worn because 3 people told you it looked good? I already told you mine. See you in the next experiment.